Hey everyone. So today we're going to dive into these incredibly detailed character portraits. Now, at first glance, they might just look like some really beautiful art, right? But there's a fascinating system at play here, a kind of hidden blueprint we're going to deconstruct together.
So let's start with the big question. What is it that actually makes a character feel real? You know, like a person with their own story. Is it just the way they look, or is it the emotions they show? Let's break down how these artists tackle that exact problem.
For instance, take her style. We see a cheerleader uniform, some casual socks, and a can of coffee. Now, those little details, they tell a story, right? Maybe she's an energetic student who's also, a little sleep-deprived. But is that the whole picture?
Or what about her mood? We get a whole range of expressions here. Serious, smiling, even blushing. This emotional spectrum, it gives us a peek into her personality. But I think you'll agree, there's still more to the story.
And then, what about their secrets? A purse, a journal, a little candy tin. These personal items, they hint at a private life, a whole world beyond what we see on the surface. So, what's the thread connecting all of this?
Well, here's the key. These images, they aren't just random collections of details. They are meticulously structured technical blueprints. Basically, an instruction manual for understanding a character.
The official term for this is a panoramic character deconstruction. Now that sounds pretty fancy, but just think of it like an art Bible. It's a standardized format that breaks a character down into their core visual parts to tell their entire story without using a single word of dialogue. And today, we're going to learn how to read it.
So, to see how this blueprint is actually built, let's start with the very first component. What's on the surface? Their clothing.
The whole approach is super systematic. It's all about peeling back the layers from the outside in. It starts with the outerwear, a uniform or a jacket. Then it moves to the mid-layers, and finally, it reveals the intimate apparel. This deliberate deconstruction shows us way more than just an outfit.
Just look at this. On the left, we see her public persona, a student in a pretty formal plaid uniform. But then the blueprint also isolates her intimate apparel, this really exquisite lace lingerie. This contrast, right, between her public exterior and her private self, that's a core part of the story.
Next up, we're digging deeper. Let's talk about how these blueprints engineer feeling, both emotional and, physical.
Okay, so every single blueprint includes what's called an expression sheet. And if you look closely, you'll start to notice a pattern. First, there's the serious or neutral face. That's kind of the character's default state. Then you get a gentle smile. But then, almost every single time, we get blushing and flustered, or even tearful and panicked. This contrast is absolutely key. It's designed to create something known in anime as gap mo, that charming contradiction between how a character usually acts and a sudden, unexpected side of them. So we see their composed public face, and then we're shown this very curated moment of private vulnerability. That flustered expression, it's put there specifically to make them more relatable.
Here's a perfect example. On the left, this character is in focused working mode, all business. But on the right, she's showing flustered surprise. That shift is jarring, and it is completely intentional. It's that little glimpse behind the professional mask that makes the character so compelling.
But it's not just about emotional feeling. Let's talk about physical sensation. The artists who make these say that rendering texture is the most technically demanding part of the whole process, and honestly, it's easy to see why. I mean, just look at this incredible detail. On the left, you can see individual droplets of water on skin. On the right, the distinct weave of plaid fabric. There's this hyper-focus on materialism and sensation, on how things feel. The softness of skin versus the texture of cloth, the coolness of water. It's all part of the story. Okay, so we've covered clothing and feeling. For the final piece of our blueprint, let's look at how a character's entire life can be summed up by, what's in their bag? It's the classic what's in my bag narrative technique, These blueprints use the contents of a character's purse or satchel to tell us who they are when no one's looking. Their hobbies, their habits, their secrets, it's all laid out for us to see.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. As you start looking through dozens of these blueprints, you begin to see these patterns. The same items appear again and again. A tube of lipstick, very often shade number 520. A private diary, sometimes locked. And of course, the usual stuff. Phones, headphones, and hair accessories.
Here's our first piece of evidence. Notice the two key items sitting right next to each other. The lipstick, explicitly labeled number 520, and a private diary. Now, is that a coincidence? Let's take a look at another one. And bam! With a completely different character, we see the exact same pattern. The same items, the same lipstick shade, number 520, and another secret diary. This is not an accident. It's a deliberate artistic choice, a shared symbol that connects these characters and hints at a private, maybe even romantic, inner life.
So, let's bring it all together. What is the ultimate goal of this incredibly detailed blueprint? What's it all for?
It's a formula, really. The deconstruction of clothing reveals the private self. The specific range of emotions is designed to create vulnerability. The focus on texture creates this whole sensory experience, and the personal items fill in the backstory. Altogether, they build a complete narrative.
Ultimately, what we're looking at is a specific, almost scientific form of visual storytelling. It's a systematic method for building a character's entire world, their past, their personality, their secrets, just by breaking them down into these distinct visual pillars.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Is this methodical approach the ultimate form of character study, a way to build a person from the ground up? Or is it a carefully engineered formula designed specifically to create an immediate and powerful connection with us, the viewer? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.